Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about Kingdom of Ash. Finally, I have finished this massive book and this massive series. I'm also going to talk about what I thought of this series as a whole now that I've finally finished it all and given it a fair chance. However, before I get into that, let's just do a quick recap of what happened in this book. Needless to say, this video is going to have spoilers. All of my videos pretty much have spoilers. This is a bit of like a book club between you and I where we have both read the book and we're now chatting about it. This isn't really like a review to help you decide if you want to read the book or not. If you're on this video, you've read the book, you know what's going on. So let's just take a second to sit and like remember and reflect on like what actually went down, because I don't know about you, but like a couple of weeks after reading a book, like a lot of that book is just gone. Like I've forgotten it. So part of me doing these videos is like trying to document my experience and my memory of the book at the time, so I can then watch this back in the future and be like, oh yeah, that's what that book was about and that's what I thought of it. Great, now I know whether to read it again or not. So in this book, a lot happened and also a lot didn't happen. Like it was 1,000 pages, but like looking back at it now, there's like a few plot points and then it's kind of just over because there was so much to tie up. To start, we have Aelin, our like main character, even though we follow a lot of different characters in the series, and she has been taken captive by Maeve at the end of Empire of Storms, and she's being like mercilessly tortured over and over again by this guy. Is he called Cairn? Can't remember. I feel like there was a Cain in book one and a Cairn in the end book. Can we not change the names up a little bit, Sarah? Please, let's just have a bit of distinction. He is torturing her for Maeve and kind of putting her to sleep to heal her every time, to the point where like all her scars even end up healed permanently, and she is super gaslit because she doesn't know what's really happened or what was a dream, because there's also these like weird dream sequences where Maeve seems to be like infiltrating her mind, her dreamscape, and all of this is obviously super traumatizing to Aelin and kind of traumatizing to read. For a YA book that's got some like fluffy romance in it, this went really hard, and I feel like this is something I want to talk about Sarah J Maas books, because it's the same in Court of Thorns and Roses, even though that's kind of posited as like the rom-com series. There's a lot of like really graphic and hardcore violence in the books. Like just think of Claire Bidor in A Court of Thorns and Roses, where she's literally tortured and then like her corpse is hung on the wall and everyone's like, ooh, cute Rhysand or Tamlin romance, and it's like, these are all quite dark books as well. And I almost feel like parts of this story in Kingdom of Ash were like a bit overkill, honestly. I feel like Sarah J Maas could have dialed down the violence like significantly, but still kept a lot of the emotional impact without it being like almost like torture porn. Like it just feels like a bit much. Even adult fantasies don't always have that level of violence, or if they do, it's treated with like way more impact. Think about like Theon and how he's tortured and turned into Reek in the Game of Thrones series. And even though it's very extreme, it never feels like overkill, because that's just how twisted Ramsay is. Like you can tell that he's a real sadist that really enjoys doing this to somebody. But for some reason in this book, the torture doesn't really feel as horrifying, or it doesn't land. Maybe because Cairn is a bit of an empty character. We don't really get a sense of like his sadism or true evil, because he's doing these acts, but we're not seeing much about who he really is as a character. He's kind of just evil for evil's sake. We don't see kind of how he got that way in any shape or form. The impact on Aelin also doesn't feel as significant. She is traumatized by the events of the torture, and when she gets out, she doesn't quite know what to believe and what's real and what's not. She's desperate to get out of the helmet, obviously. She doesn't use her power or speak to anyone very much. She's kind of avoidant of Rowan. But aside from that, she's more or less functional, and she's able to pick up her relationship with Rowan again, able to pick up her relationships with her friends again. And I'm not sure if that's that believable given the level of torture that she endured, compared to Theon, who completely dissociates from his own identity, becomes Reek, has been so fear conditioned, he doesn't even really recognise Yara when he sees her, and it takes him a long time to start to relate to who he was and the old people in his life again, and like years to get out of this traumatized state. In fact, he never truly gets out of it. Obviously, I'm talking about the show and not the books because the books aren't finished, but you know, I do feel like he's permanently changed by his experience. Whereas Aelin, by the end of the war, obviously she's gone through some permanent changes, she's lost her magic, but you know, she's looking at the stain left by Erewhon on the balcony and she's like, well, I can just put a rug there, and she's joking and she's kind of going to live happily ever after with Rowan, and it's a big happy ending. And that feels good. I like that she gets a happy ending and gets what she wants in the end. I think it would be, you know, it's not the kind of book where it's super realistic, but if we were to go for realism, she would have more evidence of some like demons lingering mentally. So what else happens that I can react to? Aelin returns to the continent and she meets up with Chaol and Yrene in Aniel, where they're getting attacked by a big army. It's basically like the whole Tower Dawn crew, and they meet up with Aelin and Rowan and they have some nice kind of reunions, and it's nice to see them come together and talk about what they've been through and what they've learned. We get this intense battle in which Aelin burns this whole wave, this whole river that's going to destroy everyone in the whole army by using all that power that she saved up. She was saving up to destroy Maeve out of revenge, but instead uses it to save a lot of people, which is a nice healthy use of that rage and that power. We get to see Chaol dealing with like his varying levels of disability, of having to be on a horse or in a chair or use a cane or walk normally. We see that Yrene is pregnant and that adds a little bit of stakes, but we know, yeah, she's probably going to be fine. Nesryn and Sartaq are just kind of there and fighting, like not got much to say about them, they're doing fine. And the best part of this storyline is Elide and Lorcan. They have a big rift after he betrayed Aelin basically, and have spent much of the time not talking to each other, but when Lorcan is kind of reckless and mortally wounded on the battlefield, Elide puts this aside, she gets Chaol's grumpy horse and gallops out to save him when the wave is about to rush in. It's very tense, and you know, they kind of admit and give in to their love for each other and learn to forgive. That was one of the best parts of the book, I would say, and they are like maybe one of my favourite storylines at this point. While this is all going on, we have the storyline with Manon, whatever. I call her Manon. I hear a lot of people call her Manon. I'm like, why are you emphasising it that way? But anyway, we have her with the witches, the Crotons, and trying to win them over. And during this, she kills the Yellowlegs matron and kind of stands up to her grandmother, who runs away, and makes a potential ally with the Blue Blood one, I think. Can't remember. But that's all that kind of happens in that storyline up to the point where they go to join in with the war up north. And we have Dorian learning to master shapeshifting. We have relationship stuff with him and Manon, but nothing really develops too far because they both have like other focuses at that time. He goes to Mararth to get the final word key and he succeeds. He kind of works with Maeve and ends up betraying her. That was a really good plot. It was good to see Maeve's reaction to losing Aelin and see kind of the outcome of Aelin's manipulations. We see that Maeve is quite defeated and has to try and team up with Erewhon and kind of go crawling to him. And it's really satisfying that Dorian gets to kind of steal her power, betray her, get the word key, and yeah, it's just a good conclusion. And it's also good to see Dorian kind of face the kind of heart of evil in this castle that he had to face when he had the word collar on. I think it was a good writing decision to have him tie up that side of the plot because it's very rooted to him and his own traumas. And once he has this word key, he goes and ends up meeting up with Aelin. At this point, Aelin is close to Endovier, and she has a bit of a vote with everyone else in their party, all of the Tower of Dawn crew and her little crew, and they vote for her to try and close the Word Gate now because they think it will take Erewhon with them. And this feels unsatisfying because we really want her to get home to Orinth. But it's also quite poetic that she's going to try and finish this where things almost kind of started in Endovier. She and Dorian work together to try and close the Word Gate, hoping that it will save both of their lives. And during this we get a big reveal that the king, Dorian's father, who's always been nameless, is actually the solution to the riddle, or whatever. Nameless is my price. He steps in and takes Dorian's place, and Dorian's kind of kicked out with all of his remaining power. And the king, whose name is actually Dorian as well, is consumed by this, forging of the gate. There's then all sorts of twists and turns within Aelin trying to close the gate. She ends up betraying all the gods. They don't manage to save Elena. She tried to make a deal with them to save her or something like that. Can't remember, but Elena's consumed. The Word Gate is forged. The gods don't take everyone with them, so they still have the full threat to face. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Aelin loses pretty much all of her power except a tiny little ember of flame. So she comes back out of this portal, and basically they have to face the whole might of the army, both Maeve and Erwin, without her massive well of power. And during this process she kind of goes through a lot of stacked worlds in the portal, and she gets to see Feyre and Rhys kind of like go across the sky like a star, which was a nice little reference to ACOTAR. So she comes back, everyone's kind of pissed obviously, and then they go on to Orinth to fight the final battle. Now during all of this time, Lysandra and Edion have been holding down the fort with everyone else up north and fighting Erwan's big armies. They are getting absolutely ruined. They are just getting defeat after defeat after defeat. It's not going well, and they're pretty much all very close to dying by the time Aelin gets there. Manon and the witches have already gone there, and they're fighting really hard, and they end up blowing up the witch tower because all of the 13 sacrifice themselves, and they all die, and all of their wyverns die, and it's very tragic and very sad. Feels like Manon and Abraxas just like lose everything and all of their loved ones, and like not many of the others lose that much in this war, but she just has to lose everything. This part was really devastating and sad. I did cry. It was very well done, seeing them in like slow motion all dying and sacrificing themselves, seeing the wyverns die. That was the worst part because I love the wyverns. And poor Abraxas lost his mate, which makes me very sad. But he stayed alive, which is the most important thing, because we all know that I am his #1 fan. It's quite poetic in a way that Manon, who at the beginning when we meet her in Heir of Fire, is very sociopathic, heartless, brutal, is like willing to kill Astrid and like other members of the 13 if they step out of line, willing to beat them up, humiliate them, because that's the culture of the Blackbeaks. But in the end she's really broken down all of those walls. She really genuinely loves and cares about them. They're her family and friends, and because she's now accepted that love for them, she is just devastated. Their deaths, however, weren't in vain. They managed to blow up Manon's grandmother, the witch tower, and in doing so they break the curse, and Manon and all of the other witches are able to return to their homeland in the Wastes, which is a very satisfying conclusion. Edion and Lysandra have a lot of drama throughout the novel. This wasn't like the nicest thing to read. So Lysandra was playing as Aelin, which was a good plot point, but Edion hates her for this and really blames her for everything, and he's really horrendous to her. Eventually, can't remember what happens, she fights really hard. She does a really good job of fighting this war. She's really holding the fort and holding everything together, and eventually Edion sees this and forgives her. She isn't willing to forgive him because he's been horrible. He's treated her like borderline abusively, and it takes a while for both of them to get to a point where they both forgive each other. But by the final battle, like maybe halfway through the final battle, they are like together, and they are, kissing every night in alcoves and, trying to get through the day just so they can be together in the end. When Aelin shows up, they are on the brink of defeat and they help turn the battle around. Gavriel shows up because he was with Rowan and Lorcan and their little posse, and he goes to Edion and helps him save the gate by sacrificing himself. Now I knew this was going to happen because like Gavriel was the only one who didn't have like a love interest, and his only like stakes in this story were like his relationship with Edion. So the fact that he got to go and help his son and fight by his side and save him was like the perfect conclusion to his arc. I knew people would die in this book. I thought more of the characters would die than they did, but I was really like thinking during it like, oh, who's it going to be? Because I don't want any of these couples to be separated by death. That would just be quite tragic. So I was like, well, Gavriel's obvious choice. He's definitely going to die. Fenris could have died, and he did and came back. I'm glad he survived though, because he went through so much and him and Aelin formed such a nice bond. So it really didn't leave anyone else as a candidate to be axed for the tragedy and the emotional impact, and thus I was not really like crying or upset that he died. I just expected it and was like, cool. I thought we would have a more devastating tragedy, but apparently not. I really thought one of the like princes or princesses from the Tower Dawn crew would have died, but they were all fine. So that's that, I guess. We don't really see like anything about the southern continent and like what's going to happen with them, if there's going to be like continued rivalries. We never really hear from Aragorn again. I feel like he was a bit of a loose cannon, so it feels like a bit of a wasted opportunity to not add a little bit more drama when we spent a whole book there. But I guess Sartak survived and is now going to be the emperor or whatever, and that's all going to be fine. So that was that. That's that plotline tied up. Aelin beats Maeve, even though she doesn't have her magic. She kind of fools them into thinking that she has more magic than she does, which is very clever. And Yrene defeats Erewhon with her healing power. She's helped by Dorian, and good overcomes evil, and the good guys win, and then they all live happily ever after, even though some of them are sad about Gavriel or the 13 or other traumas that they went through. But no one is that irreparably broken, so it's still kind of a happy ending. And that's pretty much all there is to say. This was an epic fantasy. There was a classic good versus evil, and the evil had like no nuance or grey area at all. It's a bit like Lord of the Rings in that way, where like Sauron and the orcs are just irredeemable and almost like evangelically evil. Like, it's not the evil of man, it's like an otherworldly evil, and therefore it's a bit black and white. However, unlike Lord of the Rings, which had deeper themes of, you know, even the smallest person can change the course of the world, I don't feel like this series had anything like that to say. I think it was more of a action-packed with romance and drama and like just a fun time, like an enjoyable read. There'll be some laughs, there'll be some crying, and it'll be a fun time, and then you'll finish it and then you won't think about it again. I know that's not true for everyone, and some people really adore this series and they're like, this is my Roman Empire, I've got a Throne of Glass tattoo, and like, that's great, I really love that for you. But I don't feel that way about the series. I did really enjoy it. I think I would give it 3.5, 4 stars, but I really wanted something more, something to learn, a deeper theme. I think there was potential to have that, but like, she just didn't give it to us. I've also mentioned Game of Thrones a lot, referenced it a lot while talking about these books, and that's because they do have a Game of Thrones feel as well, with the multiple POVs, and you know, some of the characters are described as morally grey. Aelin is quite morally grey in that she's been an assassin, and you know, some people don't trust her for that in the latter books when she's trying to rebrand as Princess Aelin. She's vain and arrogant, and that comes back to bite her in the ass at times. There was echoes of Daenerys and people fearing that like she's a loose cannon and she's going to burn the innocents and be really ruthless, but that never comes to fruition. I feel like with Daenerys, you know, these clues are laid that she's actually a bit unhinged and a bit mad king, and in the series we get to see her then burn everyone, burn innocents, lose it, and we never get that from Aelin. She just ends up being good right to the end, and like her background of an assassin doesn't really impact her in the end, apart from making her really good at fighting without magic, which I guess is useful. Lorcan is another morally grey character. He's kind of very dark. At one point he betrays Aelin. He loses Elide over it, but he does gain her back. And in the end he's kind of transformed by love and is all good and has a positive future. Dorian develops a morally grey edge once he's been imprisoned by the Wyrdstone Caller. He comes out of that. He is traumatized, should be more traumatized than he is, kind of like Aelin. And yeah, he has these questions about himself and his humanity and how much of him is Valg. He connects with Manon over that, and that's kind of why he's attracted to her. But in the end, he's a good character and he does the right thing. He doesn't make that many mistakes because of these grey elements or these darker elements. I think they're interesting characters. It's good that they're not just, goody two-shoes characters, but I really want to see consequences for the choices they make and the way that they are, and not just have everything work out totally happy. I guess what I'm saying is it could have just been explored with more complexity and a little bit more depth. I know it's a YA series, but I think lots of YA books do achieve depth, complexity, and really strong themes, and this just missed the mark a little for me. Because of this, it's really hard for me to have a discussion about these books. I feel like all my videos have just been talking about the plot and reacting to the plot and being like, yeah, the writing's not great and there's not that much more to it, but I had fun, and that makes for a little bit of a boring discussion. I wish it gave me more, and then I could give more in these videos. So am I glad I read the series? Yes. I enjoyed it, especially when I was stressed out about other stuff and just wanted some escapism. But would I recommend it universally? No, I think this is for specific people, and most people and a lot of people I know probably wouldn't enjoy this series. I don't feel moved to the point where I'm everyone's got to read this book, which is how I feel about a lot of books and movies. I'm we are going to watch this together, we're going to read this together, but I don't feel that passionately about this. I'm just yeah, it was good. Now that it's all done, I'm quite excited to get into some other books that I can critically engage with a little bit more, turn my brain back on, although I'm going to have to pause on that because I'm going to read A Court of Silver Flames next, and that's going to be more of the same kind of thing. But after that I will be done with Sarah J Maas. I'm probably not going to read Crescent City because it just doesn't interest me at all. But if you think I should, if you think it's got more complexity and depth, let me know. Maybe I'll consider it, but I'm not sure. They are long books. One thing I will say about this series is it really did get me over my fear of long books, and I learned to read a little bit faster. I think it's nice that they kind of gradually got longer and longer and longer. I felt like a frog in a slowly boiling pot of water. And by the time I got to Kingdom of Ash, this nearly 1,000 page epic, I was yeah, I guess I can get through this in about 2 weeks. Whereas before, looking at A Court of Silver Flames, I was no, that will just take me 3 months to get through. Now I'm on A Court of Silver Flames, I'm oh, this is easy, it's only 750 pages. I get through this in a week. So I am happy about what this series has done for me in that respect. That's pretty much all I have to say. The only other little thing that I will mention that annoyed the fuck out of me is the writing style. Most of the writing was fine, but in this book in particular, she didn't do this as much in the others. She liked to say things in threes. She liked to just say more and more and more. She would say Dorian flew and flew and flew. Aelin breathed and breathed and breathed. And that just doesn't add any impact in my opinion. It adds the same amount of impact to just say he flew, he breathed. These things did not need to be emphasised so much, because all that's happening is Dorian's just flying to a place and Aelin is just breathing. I think just she breathed, full stop, would have added impact as well. And there was variations in how she did it. Sometimes she would just have it as a run-on, and. Sometimes she would have a full stop or a comma. Sometimes it would be little sentences repeated. But she did it too much. I feel you could do this threes thing once or twice in a 1,000-page book, but I feel she did it about 15 or 16 times potentially, and at one point she did it 2 or 3 times in the same chapter, and it was just too much. Just too much, man. Just chill it out. I get that a lot in Sarah J Maas books, is like she's trying to add like drama to a scene, and she'll do it by having an em dash, or like having to stop and repeat the first half of the sentence again, and things like that. And it's like she doesn't know how to add drama and emphasis without doing these kind of basic things. And I just wish like an editor would have gone like, can we do it this way instead? Like, girl, maybe this doesn't add the impact that you think it does. It's giving like fan fiction, amateur melodrama. Maybe that's rude of me to say as someone sitting here who hasn't even written a whole first draft of a book yet. But when I do, I don't think I'm going to do that breathe and breathe and breathe thing, okay? I'll probably have my own quirky mistakes that everyone hates and finds irksome, but if you're irked by my writing when it finally comes out, let me know so that I can stop it. Okay, that's enough ranting. Let me know what you thought of Kingdom of Ash and the series as a whole in the comments. Do you love it? Is it your Roman Empire? Or do you just read it to hate it and rant about it? Or are you like me and you're somewhere in the middle and you're like, yeah, this is fun, but is it great? Maybe not. Subscribe for more bookish chats, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!